Alrighty. We got why Skyrim from Resbuten.
Skyrim is one of the biggest games of all time. It has
Oh yeah.
received high acclaim from reviewers and players alike, been re-released so many times that I've lost count,
Mm-hmm.
and sold over 60 million copies across all platforms.
That's a lot of fucking platforms, dude. Bro, Skyrim is the bomb.
Not all sales data for games is exact or public, as it's on the publishers or devs to report it, but of
Mm-hmm.
all the information that's out there, this makes it the 8th best-selling game of all time.
Dang. Really?
But of all the information that's out there, this makes it the 8th.
After years of silence regarding Skyrim sales numbers, Bethesda Todd Howard released in June 2023 that the RPG has sold over 60 million units since it was first released in 2011. We're sitting here, it's 12 years after Skyrim. Howard told IGN, we're looking at the game that has over 60 million copies. And all these people playing, they're still playing it. That's crazy, man. In 2011, 12 years after Skyrim. Dang.
Best-selling game of all time. And what's most impressive about that is that it's one of only 2 games in the top 10 that's single-player only.
Yeah.
Since its release, it has been a force to be reckoned with and has changed the gaming landscape forever. Throughout the years, it's inspired countless artists, memers, video essayists, game developers, and of course, modders, all of whom have kept the
Yeah, doesn't Skyrim have like the most mods, period?
game alive in various ways. And to this day, it still has a massive player base, averaging around 20,000 concurrent players.
I didn't know people. Okay, so I played Skyrim once on 360 and then again on 360. I played it twice. Bro, I have not played Skyrim on PC. I didn't even know that you could, like, I know it's on Steam, but I haven't played it on Steam. The fact that it still has like a decent player base of just people playing a single player game, that's crazy.
Across its Steam versions alone. It is beloved in a way few games ever are,
Mm-hmm.
and I often find myself wondering why. The answer
Okay, why? I think Skyrim was probably at the time one of the best games to I don't know, it had the best graphics at the time. It had the biggest world at the time. Its combat system, well, although not being the best, it was good enough. Yes, the game did release with bugs, but for the most part, unless you were like going around looking for them, you didn't really notice them, or at least I didn't. It was immersive. There wasn't any real political bullshit, like, modern day bullshit in the game. There might have been like some political stuff between the Jarls, but that's like fantastical political bullshit. I don't know. The combat was good. The immersion was good. The song, the music was good. What else? The stories were good. The progression was good. I don't know, man. It was pretty easy to like. Well, not pretty easy. It like the difficulty was pretty good. Every character was like voice acted.
I expect a lot of you will have to this question is simply that it's a great game. And okay, look, I'm not going to claim that everything about
Like, it's not perfect by any means, especially by modern day standards. If you were to grade this game on modern day standards, it would probably not get the same score as it did back then. All right, understandably so.
Skyrim is terrible. It's not, but there's a lot in it that's really not great. What makes this notable is that some of the stuff that I would say are the worst aspects of the game are also arguably some of the most important. For instance, the combat. It is one of the main pillars of the title, and it's kind of a mess.
So, you could do either third person or first person. Me, There were times where I went into third person, but for the most part, I messed around in first person. And first person melee wasn't really much of a thing back then, and for good reason. It's like really weird. You still have this image of like a shield and a sword, or like a little magic hand and a sword or something. And I don't know, it's just first person melee combat. It just looks, it's not very intuitive. You get animation locked. If you do animation canceling, while it might feel good, it will look wonky. Whereas if you were to do all that in third person, all the same things apply. Like it would look weird but feel good. But also understandably, a lot of, like when you went into third person with Skyrim, the animations didn't exactly match up. Like you'd have like a run animation. Maybe you would have like a turning left and like leaning animation or something, but it was very much like you're on ice skates.
Melee feels floaty and unresponsive,
Yeah.
making it so landing a hit doesn't even feel satisfying. And as enemy AI is pretty bare bones, fights largely boil down to just spamming the attack button in the hopes you'll outdamage whatever you're going against.
Yeah.
You may occasionally need to block or take a few steps back to avoid a hit, but even then it still ends up being pretty mindless, and can be further trivialized by making or buying a lot of health potions.
Bro, the crafting and consumable system in this game was goated. In so much that you could essentially just pause mid combat. It was very like new player friendly. You could pause mid combat, and if you see your health low, just pause, drink some potions because you got the health like instantly, and then go back into combat. All right, it was just fun, and it was like new player friendly.
Magic also feels unsatisfying due to scaling issues and can be incredibly frustrating because of how easy it is to accidentally do damage to allies or just any person hanging around.
Yeah.
The latter can be especially annoying, as in some instances it leads to people attacking you. Like when I was doing the vampire quest near Morthal, I had Thonir join me, and whenever I would use Bane of the Undead, the area of effect would hit him too, giving me a bounty and causing him to go after me as if there wasn't a master vampire right in front of us.
Damn.
All in all, while your attacks may get stronger,
yeah, that part was annoying whenever you actually had like a companion with you. Well, that was one of the main selling points, because whenever you play Skyrim and you got like a little companion bro, it kind of felt like you're Frodo and Sam taking on the world in Lord of the Rings. That's what it felt like. But then the thing that pulled you out of that was all of this bullshit of like AoE affecting your companion, magic, like just there's no friendly fire, or there was friendly fire, and if it did hit your buddy, he would like start attacking you. But you could also make the argument that, oh, that's like in real life. If I do like a fire, well, not like in real life, but if you do like a fire attack, you hit your boy, he's gonna be pissed. So you have to be a little bit more tactical with it. But then again, there are a lot of magic moves that are just like simply AoE, and you can't really utilize them as well as if your companion just simply didn't take friendly fire, which I get it. But like for the most part, whenever I played Skyrim, I did the classic stealth archer approach. Oh man, that shit's too good.
And your defense is more effective, you're never really challenged to engage with the combat any differently by the end than you are at the beginning, creating a flat experience. Another rough...
Was it flat? I mean, yes, there was the whole loop of, you could do the stealth archer thing where you sneak up or like just cloak yourself, go invisible, crouch, and then whip out your bow and arrow, wind that shit up, go for a headshot, and then just one-shot the boss. Same thing for melee combat, either like sword and shield, or single two-hand sword, or sword and board. At the end of the day, you're just trying to get like the most attacks, or like one big chunky meaty stealth attack. Like as far as magic goes, I didn't really like use magic that much. The only magic I used was like healing magic. But I mean, I think the main innovation for Skyrim was the shouts. That's what I think, because you had like your destruction magic, illusion magic. What was it? Alteration, was it? And then I think there was like another school. There were like a bunch of different schools, but like your main combat magic one was like destruction. It's like the damage one. There were a couple other ones where it's like, oh, AoE fear, AoE confuse, or AoE calm, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I would probably agree it was flat, but it was kind of flat. It wasn't. There was a little bit of like ramp up in terms of like leveling up and getting the next skill and like the little constellation doodads, but it wasn't like it wasn't linear. It like increased, but it wasn't flat either. It was like maybe biasing kind of flat, but it kind of got a little complex, but not really. But yeah,
spot with the game can be seen with the role playing itself. While you do have tons of choices in terms of what quests you engage with, more often than not, there aren't all that many interesting choices once you've started a quest line. And in the instances where you are given a choice, it often ends up lacking nuance and suitable options. One of the first quests players will likely come across is a prime example of this. Upon reaching Riverwood, you come across Sven and Faendal, two inhabitants of the village who are in love with the same woman, Camilla. Whichever one you talk to first will ask you to deliver a fake letter to Camilla filled with rude and heinous things, and then tell her it was sent from the other. From there, you can give her the letter and either lie or tell the truth about who wrote it, or you can show it to the suitor you haven't talked to yet, who will then give you a fake letter of his own to give to Camilla and also tell you to say it was from the other. Now, once you have both letters, you have to make a choice between who you want to sell out, Sven or Faendal, and this sucks. The quest makes it clear that both these guys are scumbags, but once you reach the point of figuring that out, there is no way to tell Camilla about it. So you either have to pick a side and let her continue to spend time with someone that's manipulating her, or you just do nothing, neither of which feels like a satisfying end if you are trying to play as a moral character. In these kinds of decisions,
I would say for the most part, people, when they go into play Skyrim, they don't try to play a good or a bad character, because there are no moral systems in the game like Mass Effect. There was like the blue path, which is like the good guy path, or the red path, which is like the red guy path. And also Star Wars did this with like the Jedi and the Sith path. Also, whenever in history, whenever video games implement the two fork, moral system with the good guy bad guy path, most players only interact. If they only play the game once, about 70 to 80%, somewhere between 60 and 80% of players only pick the good guy path, because you stand to gain the most from the good guy path, because it's kind of hard to like. So with developers knowing that, that's where they're going to put all of their like time and attention to make a well fleshed out like good guy path, and maybe not so much into a well thought out bad guy path. But I would say most players, whenever they play Skyrim, they don't pick like a moral good guy bad guy thing. I don't think so.
Are pretty commonplace. More often than not, you are extremely limited.
I think most gamers, or at least the type of gamer I was like a fucking like a turbo nerd, like casual tryhard gamer whenever I played Skyrim. I think, and I will always say this, and even though there's like no way to know, I think I hit like the world first like player to do like 100 stealth, like when the game got first released in 2011, because I knew how to level up stealth, because I did it in what was the game before Skyrim? Elder Scrolls Oblivion. So what you did in Oblivion to level up stealth is, before you even start the game, you start out in a cell, like a jail cell, and there's guards like patrolling around. And how you level up stealth is that you crouch down in Oblivion and you walk straight into a corner. And as long as there is a person within a proximity, you will gain, and there's like the little eyeball is like grayed out, you will gain points in stealth. And the nice thing about that was that it didn't require line of sight for you to get stealth points. So you could 100% be gaining points in stealth with someone behind a wall. So I don't know how I figured this out, but I did. And I think maybe I did like my first playthrough because, you know, whenever you play like new game or whatever, I was a little kid and I'm like fucking around with the controls. It's like, okay, this is crouch. It's like, oh, what's that eyeball? Oh, this is stealth. Oh, okay. And then I think I went like a little bit into the game, like maybe an hour or two. And then I was like, I forgot what happened. But then I just started the game again. And then I was like, wait, can I just gain infinite levels of stealth like in the jail cell? So I did that, and I jerry-rigged my little Xbox 360 controller with like some string, tied it around the thing, and then wrapped it around like a heavy like water bottle, and then just yanked the damn left stick forward and just set it on the ground. And I like anchored the controller so it wouldn't move or anything. And that motherfucker worked. I left that jail cell on that second playthrough with 100 stealth. And it took me a couple hours, not gonna lie. And I thought that was like the coolest fucking shit that I ever did as like a little kid. So, fast forward to then Skyrim comes out. I tried to do the same thing. But I forgot how Skyrim starts out. But there was a point in the beginning level of Skyrim where you're in a cave and you come across a bear. So I was like, okay, let me try this shit out again. Okay, I just wedge myself in like a little corner because in the cave there's like some stalagmites, stalactites, and there's like a big ass bear just sleeping. Let's see if this shit works. Okay, crouch. Check. Jerry rig that shit forward. Check. Let it go for like 5 minutes. Damn. No stealth levels. Fuck. What am I doing wrong? Okay, so I was like just sitting there trying to figure out what the fuck. And then I was like, wait a sec. Do I need to use the right stick? The one that turns your because like, what was it? The left stick is like camera and the right stick is like, or no. It's left stick is move. That's how long I've been playing on fucking M&K. I forgot which stick does which. Left stick is like move your character and then right stick is camera. So I tried to figure out to see if this was true. So I had to get another string for my 360. I yanked the left stick forward to go forward, and I yanked the right stick all the way to the right so that it made like a perfect circle. I hit crouch, jerry rigged that shit up, you know, like heavy ass water bottle, make the controller not move, start stealthing in a circle around a bunch of rocks and stalactites around so the bear didn't see me. What do you fucking know? That shit worked. Oh my god. You couldn't just wedge yourself in a corner and just keep walking into nowhere. You had to stealth in a circle. Or that's what I did to gain stealth levels. And by the time I left that damn cave, I had 100 stealth. So there's no actual way to prove that I did this other than like just me saying it. But yeah, that's like my little thing that I thought was like really cool that I did when I was a little kid. But regardless,
in the responses you can have to any given situation, and the options you are posed with often don't account for information you've uncovered, all of which makes it hard to develop any sort of personality for your character. Most of the time you have to pick between two bad choices. These two aspects of the game design feel especially noteworthy because Skyrim is an action role-playing game, yet its action and role-playing are both fairly lackluster. I know some people...
Yeah, it's not so much ARPG in terms of Diablo or PoE, like that's, you know, ARPG, action roleplay. It's more like action combat RPG, which is like kind of weird to say, but it's like you have control of a person and you're just whipping your little sword around against other dudes.
people will point out that Skyrim is a 13-year-old game, so it obviously is going to be rough around the edges in some ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, that is true to a degree. But these specific issues don't really have much to do with limitations in tech or design knowledge. There are plenty of titles from that era that did these elements much better, and a bunch of them were published by Bethesda. For example, Dishonored dropped just a year after Skyrim, and it provided exciting and satisfying first-person melee combat that allowed for tons of player expression due to its movement options and Corvo's supernatural abilities. Even a few years before that,
Dishonored fucking gameplay is actually fucking goated.
Dark Messiah of Might and Magic had an incredible combat system that rewarded creativity and observation of the environment while also having solid and varied swordplay. As for the role-playing side of things, Fallout New Vegas released in 2010 and has long been praised as one of the most well-written, interesting, and robust role-playing experiences of all time. The point is, they had the ability to create deeper and more fulfilling combat and role-playing systems. They just chose not to. My list of issues with the game goes on and on, ranging from...
Oh yeah, the fucking claw puzzles. I hated this shit, dude. You have to actually go into your inventory, click on the claw, rotate it around to see like what the little like pattern was, and that's what you were supposed to use to figure out the lock combination. But there's nothing in the game that tells you that. Maybe there was like, if you have a companion, I think they might have told you, hey, look on the claw. I think that's what happened. But anytime I saw like the claw thing, I was just like, God dang it, I gotta go around killing everybody and then looting everything, and I gotta look at it. But I think in retrospect, this wasn't like the worst implementation of like a lock puzzle.
From the overly simplistic puzzles to the level scaling to the tedium of travel to...
Well, yeah, because if you make the puzzles too hard, not everybody is going to be able to experience it. So you have to appeal to the lowest common denominator, and in so doing that, you kind of dilute the difficulty of like the little in-game puzzles. But with doing that, you allow more people to just simply experience the game. So it's like a trade-off.
The annoying encumbrance system, and it all adds up to an experience that's easy to look back.
The only reason the encumbrance system was annoying was because damn near 99% of players are motherfucking hoarders and pack rats and feel the need to grab up every little thing, and it's like, oh god, I'm encumbered, oh god. Okay, now what do? I have to look at the value of all my items and see like what's the heaviest one that's worth the least, and then I drop that thing, and then you keep doing that for the rest of the level until you get to your house. Then you can, well, not even until you get to your house, until you get to like a store or something to where you can just sell all the junk. And then it's like, oh, I got money now. That part was pretty cool. I never really had an issue with the encumbrance system. Yeah, because I don't know. Like, you got so much items and money in the game to where it was like, it wasn't too much of an issue for me.
Back on as one defined by missed opportunity. Now, despite all of my criticisms,
the encumbrance system was like, what was it? Bethesda's attempt to try to create some sort of like, you know, a little bit of immersion and realism in the game. It's like, oh, you're a person, you can only carry like what, 200 pounds on your back or whatever. And then, I mean, there were spells and potions that you could, or you had enchantments that you could put on your shit to make it so that you could carry more shit. All right, that's why you have a set for combat, and then you had a set for carrying shit. So you go through the cave in your combat set, you kill everything, you kill the last boss, you go get the little dragon word piece of it, and then you put on your carry set, and then your carry set's on, and then all of a sudden your damn encumbrance like fucking doubles, and then you go through, you pick up all the bodies and all their shit off of them, and then you exit the cave tunnel thing, and then you just fast travel to your house or the nearest store, and then you just sell all your shit. Now, I can understand if you didn't do that. That's understandable, but to me, I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed doing that. I was like, oh, there's like a specific little thing. You have like a sets of armor, much the same way that what do you call it? Monster Hunter did this in Monster Hunter World. You know, some people did it, some people didn't. You have your combat set for like your weapon And then you also had like potentially a gathering set of armor for, you know, just side shit, for collecting shit and whatnot to make it more efficient. And then you throw in as much like gems and as much as you can to like optimize it. And also on top of it, you could like specifically counter build certain elder dragons in that game. So my knee jerk reaction to like all of that was that when I was younger, I didn't really play like that, and it wasn't until I was like older that I started to play like that, like just make different armor sets for different activities you do within the game. And I can understand if you don't like that as like a little kid or something like that, but I don't know, I kind of enjoy doing that. And I'm not even that much of like an immersion like RPG bro. Like I don't like enjoy like whipping myself in the back because it's like immersive and all that shit. I like a lot of quality of life shit. All right, but I don't know. I don't think the encumbrance was that bad.
Skyrim became Skyrim, a title that will forever be seen as one of the most important games ever, that people will keep coming back to regardless of how much time has passed. That means something more to
never kill a chicken. That's what I learned early on in the damn game. Never kill any chicken in town. If you do that, I think this was the funniest fucking shit that they did. If you like even so much as lay a hand on a chicken, the entire town just immediately turns their head and just goes for you, dude.
To those who love it than most games could ever dream of. It doesn't matter that I have issues with it because it's reached people in a way that few titles ever have.
Yeah.
Will. And again, that brings me back to the question of why Skyrim? Despite how it may seem, I'm not trying to be...
The horse was the most OP fucking taxi in the game. You summon your horse or whatever it was, like the shadow horse with the red eyes was like the goat horse. And then, you know, you could get like another horse from like somewhere. But then the horse, you could literally traverse this mountain. You could literally just ride up the mountain. That's so cool. It looked goofy and stupid, but it's fucking cool.
A hater for the sake of being a hater. This isn't meant to be me arguing that game people love bad. I don't want to try to prove to you that Skyrim never should have reached the heights it did, or that you didn't even really like it actually. I just have long felt a disconnect with the game, and genuinely...
That's fair. I think Skyrim has a lot of nostalgia and is a product of its time. It probably was like the best thing. It was like the best game at the time type of deal. And it's still like okay today, but like much the same way that a lot of people today can't really watch black and white TV shows or movies simply because they're black and white and that's it. That doesn't mean the movies are bad by any means. Those movies were good for that time. It's just a simple matter of those things were good at the time, and that's it. You're just like, if you were born in like, I don't know, 2010, and then you didn't start playing games until like, I don't know, 2020 or 20, like you're 12 or 13, you just start playing games. It's understandable that you go back and you play like a game like Skyrim and you're like, oh, I can't play this. This is too dated. It's too wonky and shitty and all that shit. I get it.
Want to understand how Skyrim, a title with so many shortcomings and aspects working against it, succeeded in spite of them. So for the past few months, I've immersed myself in all things to do with the game, reading interviews, researching the release, and replaying it. And I see things a lot clearer now. Of course, it's not the sort of thing that can be boiled down to a single answer. It's a confluence of factors, some circumstantial and some intentional, that enabled Skyrim to become the behemoth it is. And I think it all begins with the audience Bethesda was aiming to capture. Most games out there have a wide range of types of fans, but I've noticed this is especially true with Skyrim. Obviously, there are plenty of longtime fantasy nerds who fell in love with it, as well as RPG lovers, but it also grabbed the attention of a much more casual audience.
Oh yeah.
This is anecdotal, but over the
reason it grabbed the attention of the casual audience is because the normal difficulty of the game, coupled with the fact of like, easy combat, easy puzzles, and so on and so forth. You can fast travel to every fucking node, and you have a mount. and you can sprint. Fuck you, Dragon's Dogma 2. Let me fucking fast travel wherever the fuck I want and give me a mount. All right. All these like little tiny things. These serve to benefit the massive amount of casual players. And you see what happens when you appeal to the casual player in this respect. All right. Look at Dragon's Dogma 2 and look at Skyrim. Yes, they're both kind of the same, but they're also kind of different. All right. But fast travel, no fast travel. Mount, no mount. Simple things.
The years, I've had many conversations with people who lean on the normie side of the spectrum where we get on the topic of video games, and I end up asking what their top 3 favorites are. And the majority of the time, their answers have been along the lines of Call of Duty, FIFA, and Skyrim. There are so many people who have played Skyrim that you wouldn't have expected to play Skyrim, that don't play anything else remotely similar to Skyrim. Yet, despite it being a single-player fantasy game, it appealed to these kinds of players anyway. One major reason for this had less to do with the game itself and more to do with the cultural landscape of 2011, primarily how fantasy was moving into the mainstream.
Oh yeah.
Fantasy is an interesting genre.
Yeah, you see that mountain over there? Yeah, you can just walk to that. That was another big selling point. Anything you see, you can walk to. You can get to.
In that it feels niche in a lot of ways, and for a while it was, but over the past 20 years or so, it has become no longer just for the nerds. One of the biggest contributors to this shift was the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which released in the early 2000s and achieved levels of success that no one could have ever expected, creating a demand for more stories that felt like it. This gave fantasy games a much larger target demographic to aim towards, helping many titles in that space become even more relevant. Now, the success of Lord of the Rings definitely helped Skyrim in some ways, but a different fantasy series played a much more impactful role in its success. That, of course, being Game of Thrones. The show premiered in April of 2011 and was an immediate success. There were nearly 10 million average viewers per episode, not including the more people who pirated it.
I didn't even know there was that many per episode when Game of Thrones first came out. Damn.
And that first season laid the foundation for the cultural phenomenon it would eventually become. Its grounded story filled with multifaceted and
this probably coming out, like Game of Thrones starting up, probably rekindled the vibe of everybody wanting to go back and play Skyrim. I get it.
Relatable characters helped give it a broad appeal even with all of its fantastical elements, getting even more people who had never been interested in the genre to not only watch the show, but to also buy the books. And once folks caught up to whatever was out at the time, many wanted to keep experiencing stuff like Game of Thrones. Just 7 months after the pilot aired, Skyrim released, a game that takes place in a snow-covered region largely inhabited by people who are seeking independence from the rulers to the south that heavily features a civil war and dragons. Obviously, the game wasn't inspired by the success of the show, as all of these aspects were developed long before it premiered, but some of them were definitely inspired by the books, with Todd Howard saying, "People in our studio liked it, and it seeped in a bit to what we were doing." What's more interesting...
See, that's... the reason that's good is because whenever you're making a game, and I think I heard this quote somewhere, and you got a bunch of developers on the game, how you want to get like the message across of this is the type of vibe we're going for, is you look at each dev and you see what each dev is playing. Like, what do you enjoy, like, in your spare time, completely unrelated to your job? Well, kind of related, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, unrelated to your job. What kind of things are you engaging in outside of your job? Oh, you like Lord of the Rings? Oh, you like Game of Thrones? Okay, and you're a video game developer on Skyrim? Okay. Those are already 2 points that are lining up to be a strong-ass line.
Is that apparently before Skyrim was in development, George R. R. Martin's team reached out to Bethesda to pitch a game set in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, but Bethesda decided they'd rather make a game in their own world, which does make these similarities between the two feel a little funny in hindsight. To be clear, the two
properties have
tons of differences, and also a lot of the things they have in common are popular fantasy tropes and ideas from real-world histories and mythologies. So while some influence from A Song of Ice and Fire clearly exists, it'd be unfair to say Bethesda just copied George R. R. Martin's homework. Regardless,
But just
the
change it up
parallels
a little bit so
between
it doesn't
the
look
two
exact.
created a synergy that benefited both properties. They acted as a sort of funnel to the other, and given that Game of Thrones was such a massive gateway into fantasy for so many new people, I think this was especially beneficial for Skyrim. Whenever someone, whether it be a longtime fantasy fan or a person newer to the genre, wanted to play or experience something that felt similar to Game of Thrones, Skyrim was the obvious choice, as no other game at the time came anywhere close to matching the show's scope and tone until The Witcher 3 came out in 2015. Skyrim was the closest thing there was to a Game of Thrones game, and that's kind of wild as there actually was a Game of Thrones game, and it was something. While this synergy was largely coincidental, Bethesda did seemingly capitalize on it with their marketing, most notably with the live-action trailer that came out a few weeks before the game did.
Really?
It is very Game of Thrones coded. Honestly, it could have easily been mistaken for a Season 2 teaser trailer.
I didn't even know. Did I ever see this? I probably have seen this. Bro, the amount of like time and effort that they put into this like commercial is crazy, because I don't really see any commercials for video games doing it like this anymore with like real actors and all of this shit, and like making entire sets for the video game. Most of the time you see a video game commercial and it's just like a gameplay or a trailer just ripped from the game or some shit like that, and it's like, oh, come play Call of Duty, you know. I think this is cool.
When asked about the similarities, Pete Hines, Bethesda's former VP of Marketing and Communications, said, "If people say that looks like Game of Thrones, we're in the right place in terms of mood and vibe and tone. If that's the impression we're leaving, that's a good thing, as opposed to this must be for some new video game." By airing a trailer that evoked a similar feel to the show, it signaled to anyone who had watched Game of Thrones, if you like that kind of storytelling, you'll like this as well. Now, Skyrim's success with more casual gamers can't solely be attributed to the Game of Thrones effect. It certainly helped, as fantasy had never been more in demand than it was during the show's run, but there's way more to it than that. Not to mention, Bethesda wasn't just looking to bring in fans of Game of Thrones, they wanted to go well beyond. And in their effort to do that, they ran one of the most effective marketing campaigns of all time. Even with the popularity of the genre growing, Bethesda still faced the challenge of figuring out how to market a high fantasy game to a mainstream audience. In a talk that a few members of Skyrim's marketing team gave at the Game Marketing Summit in 2012, they discussed how they didn't want to apologize for what the game was, but
Ed Davis, picture level, account lead for AKQA, said it was rare for his team to have so much advanced knowledge, develop a relationship, and immersion in the Skyrim franchise as his people did. Okay, they were able to portray the game as a modern, cinematic take on fantasy. It was almost movie-like in its marketing, imagery, and commercials, Davis said, and that wasn't lying or cheating. We didn't apologize for what it was, Hines said. It's a single-player fantasy game with elves and dwarves. There was a way to present that in a way that is true to the game.
Did want to find a way to present it that felt more approachable. To do this, instead of featuring the wide range of mechanics in the game, they leaned more into Skyrim's cinematic elements. This is evident with the live action trailer, but it also can be seen with the game's official trailer. There's narration about a coming threat, cuts between an intricately carved wall that seemingly contains some sort of prophecy, a person running, and something that seems to be chasing them, and it culminates with a confrontation between a dragon and the game's hero. It then pulls out and shows off many of the locations across the world, as well as the various ways you can fight against the threats you'll face. After an action-packed montage, it cuts back to the hero who defeats the dragon and absorbs its power.
That's
an
badass.
You'd expect to be exceedingly rare.
Bro, when I was a little kid and I saw this shit, I was like, that game looks cool. I want to do that.
But then the camera pushes out again, showing a stunning landscape with another dragon casually perched on some old ruins. Not only does this provide viewers with an easy little story to follow and be intrigued by, but it also shows off how much bigger the world is than this single moment. It promises a game with countless epic encounters, with a new dragon around every corner, an experience that is bigger than you can imagine. The cinematic approach allowed them to portray the fantastical elements of the world in-game in a way that didn't feel like nerd shit. But for the nerds watching, they could easily see all of the nerd shit within it,
Oh,
making
yeah.
it effective for both audiences. One issue with presenting a limited view of a game in this way is that buyers may feel lied to when they get their hands on it and it doesn't end up playing anything like they thought it would. But Skyrim largely avoided this, where a lot of cinematic trailers at the time didn't really resemble the game.
Oh yeah, like I think a lot of Star Wars games do this shit. Like all you got to do for a Star Wars commercial or anything Star Wars, just have like a Jedi and a Sith fighting each other, and that's like the game. But you play the game, and it's like that's not what the game is, and it's like fucking annoying. Like I don't even know. The only games that I can really see like holding this up is like a Jedi Knight Academy, like that series, or potentially Battlefront 2, but only from like the hero standpoint. You know, not the yeah. A lot of or maybe Force Unleashed could have pulled that like type of a like action commercial off, and then you get the game and then it's also action.
Gameplay or even visuals of the title in the slightest, Skyrim's was made
Yeah.
in engine, so what people saw largely was what they ended up getting. Also, even though the majority of the game is filled with slower moments, there are still plenty of these epic encounters, and as so many of them are unscripted, they're always exciting to come across. Furthermore, these slow moments that the game is kind of defined by help accentuate the ones that aren't. The downtime is a necessary part of making them feel special, it just doesn't make for the best advertising. The trailer presents a version of Skyrim many players might think they want, one filled with constant action and adventure, and then the game provided them with one that most would actually want, one still with tons of action and adventure, but also enough time to breathe in between so it never becomes exhausting. This same philosophy was also utilized by the marketing team in regards to how they rolled out information. Instead of constantly promoting the game, they valued restraint, aiming to keep information low in the hopes that, in the words of Aaron Losey, Bethesda's current VP of Global Marketing and Communications, they would keep people
hungry for more content.
The campaign started on December 11th, 2010 with the announcement trailer and was followed by the official trailer a few months later. But after that, they scaled back a fair bit to not oversaturate their messaging. They showed off a few demos at events, but for a good while, there wasn't a ton of information about the game beyond the main trailers. This strategy offered tons
Because it's not like they went full out and went like no gameplay and just cinematics. They kind of just do little cuts of in-game stuff, because if they were to do like a full like I don't know commercial or like gameplay demo of the game probably would have lost some of its mystery and allure. So showing only like, because like in the game, like what is it, you can do kind of like finishers in the game where you're like cutting people's heads and arms off. So I think that like only putting the finishers in there is like a cheeky little move. So I get it.
of room for speculation and intrigue, causing a lot of conversations about the game to be fan-driven as opposed to marketing-driven. And it worked. People talked about it regularly and even started memeing about aspects of the game well before it released. This kind of strategy has become pretty popular with established studios, as once a series has found success, there will likely be a base of fans that can be relied on to generate hype for whatever is next. By not revealing too much, it allows players to imagine all the possibilities of how it might be to play and avoids running the risk of fans becoming worn out from hearing about it too much. This is what FromSoft and Bandai Namco did with Elden Ring, it's what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and it's what Rockstar is currently doing with GTA
with GTA 6. Yeah.
6. After the success of Oblivion as well as Fallout 3, Bethesda was more popular than ever, and so the anticipation for what they did next was
Bethesda could do no wrong at that point.
high. By only giving sparse updates, they were able to stoke the anticipation, always leaving people wanting more, and then right before release ramped things up dramatically. It was in this final push that they released the live action trailer as well as a bunch of informational ones aimed at more dedicated fans, providing material for folks belonging to all the various demographics they were targeting. And during that span, it was hard for Skyrim not.
Yeah, all the demographics, all males between the ages of 18 to 25. Yeah, really wide.
To be on the brain. Along with their successful ads, they also threw a lot of stuff at the wall to see what might stir up conversation. The wildest of which being an offer they issued 9 months before the game came out, where anyone who had a kid on Skyrim's release date and named them Dovahkiin would get free Bethesda games for the rest of their life. Which frankly...
Oh yeah, that was a thing. The whole name your kid after Dovahkiin, get free Bethesda games forever. It's kind of funny now with Bethesda's current track record of games that they've released since Skyrim haven't been the best. But maybe it'll change with the game after Skyrim.
Was a bad deal then and is a worse deal now. But
yeah.
Of course, someone did it.
On Skyrim's launch day, 2 parents named their newborn son Dovahkiin and won a lifetime supply of Bethesda games. Here's where they are now. Mama, that's my game. The story of Dovahkiin, the boy born on Skyrim's release date and named after the Dragonborn. Bro, at the moment I am like 18 and I realize what my parents did, I am immediately trying to change my name to something normal. Immediately.
Bethesda's marketing campaign paid off massively, with Skyrim selling 10 million copies in its first month, surpassing Oblivion's lifetime sales. And the team racked up all sorts of marketing awards as well. It helped expose the game to a new audience and drew them in enough to actually buy it, while also still catering to their longtime fans. Now, no matter how timely or well marketed a title is, if the game itself is terrible, it will have a short lifespan. So based on what I said about its major mechanics before, you'd think Skyrim would have suffered that same fate, especially because those complaints aren't all that unique. People have been bringing them up since it came out, and I've even seen plenty of diehard fans admit that many of them are shortcomings. But despite that, Skyrim has never stopped thriving. People love playing it, even though it has problems.
Oh, yeah.
After starting a new playthrough of the game and approaching it with as open of a mind as possible, in my estimations at least, there are 2 main reasons for this. The first being that most of the ways in which Skyrim is quote-unquote bad were designed that way in order to be approachable to the wide audience they had just captured. There's this talk I think about a lot from Derek Yu, the...
Really, let me see. Soft and spiky. So soft things about the game. Emphasis on player comfort. Progress is a major goal of the game. Actions have fewer consequences. Try to minimize negative emotions related to interactivity, frustration, regret. Feel like you are the center of the game world. Yes, just make the player the main character. Spiky. Unintuitive design. Balance difficulty. And this, I would say this bullet point can purposely or can be either accidentally or purposely misused. Like you can purposely make something wrong for the sake of purposely make something feel wrong or bad for the sake of maybe it's a pay to win game. Maybe you purposely fuck up a system or a gameplay mechanic in order to, coerce the player to buy something in order to get past it. Push the player to focus and be more in the moment. That's like moment-to-moment gameplay. This bullet point probably caters to more different games like fighting games or shooting games, like competitive PvP things. Probably not so much Skyrim. So actions have larger consequences. So I think they tried to nail this down. They had this in Fallout with what was that? There's like a point in the game where you can like set the nuke off in what was that fucking city in what am I thinking about? There's like a city, and at the center of the city there's like a nuke. And you can there comes a point in the game where you can either like disable it and make it like so nothing will ever happen to it, or you can just like set it off and like get the fuck out of there. And then after that, you can't do the quests anymore. So that part is annoying. But certain actions having larger consequences. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 tried to do something like this with their whole like fucking red COVID thing, dragon disease, whatever. I thought that was stupid. But I mean, what are you gonna do? Try to create big emotions related to interactivity, e.g., big frustration and big satisfaction. I think Elden Ring nails this with just trying to beat your head against a boss, going at it 100 couple of times, Um, what else? Feels like the game world could exist without you. This is under spiky. I think this bullet point could. I mean, even though these are supposed to be like opposites, so like feels like you are at the center of the game versus feels like the game world could exist without you. I think this is just really good immersion because you see something like this in Titanfall with the attrition game mode. A lot of the bad guys will just like fight each other and they'll just like go at it and they'll start shooting and they'll go like melee each other. Or in Monster Hunter World, you have a very robust monster interaction system with like all the little monsters, all the medium monsters, all the big monsters like going around patrolling, doing whatever. They're like eating. You'll see like some weird wonky animations, and turf wars. I think this one is like, I think this one's good for like immersion and maybe not so much like, maybe.
Designer of the Spelunky series, where he discusses the idea of spiky design versus soft design. Essentially, spiky design is stuff that causes friction for the player, that sometimes feels unintuitive, but gets them in a state of focus and at its best creates this sense that they are in a world that could exist without them. Where soft design is stuff that prioritizes player comfort, always aiming to avoid negative emotions in regards to interactivity so that players have a smooth experience. All games contain some amount of both types of design, but generally lean one way or the other. Skyrim has a ton of soft design. Many of its mechanics feel frictionless. That's not to say there are never obstacles that slow the player down or even halt their progress, but for the most part, all of its major systems are easy to engage with and can be engaged with regardless of the type of character you've made. So,
the dang fucking lockpick system. That was always fun. I remember there was like, before I got that like lockpick spell, I would always carry, like, try to steal every lockpick imaginable or buy every lockpick as much as I could. So I'm always at like max lockpicks because whenever I would go to lockpicks something, I would always break like a couple of them. And I think lockpicks are like weightless. They're either weightless or like 0.1 or like 0.01 or something like that in terms of encumbrance. But god dang, that like until you like learn how to lockpick, it's frustrating.
even though I find the combat to be shallow and boring, the fact that it isn't skill-based means pretty much any player can succeed in fights as long as they have potions on hand and keep upgrading their perks and gear.
Yeah.
It's not the most engaging, but it also doesn't box many players out of progressing. With the role-playing, as many choices boil down to simple binaries with somewhat predictable outcomes, it lessens the risk of decision fatigue, and also players don't have to worry nearly as much on how a choice might impact them moving forward. In general, there isn't much the player can get locked out of based on their choices. With the exception of the Civil War questline, doing something for one faction won't stop you from doing something for another, so there rarely are meaningful consequences to actions, which is appealing to those who worry about missing things and messing up their game. Ultimately, a lot of design in Skyrim seems to be sent.
That was always something that I would become pissed about in video games. Anytime I made a decision one way, I could potentially lock myself out of a quest, either at like a different part of the game or something like that. I just thought that was like annoying.
Centered around the player always moving forward and progressing in one way or another. Like, this is why it has level scaling. It makes it so that in most cases, if the player finds a quest they want to do, they can do it right away. For those who just want to do the main quest, that's an option. And for those who want to do whatever random tasks they stumble across, that is too. And the softness of Skyrim doesn't stop there. It can be seen with the simplicity of the puzzles and the ability to engage with any skills and the leveling system in general. In a lot of ways, Skyrim doesn't want to get in the player's way. It wants to get them through the door in the hopes that they'll stay a while. And I think this was more than enough for a large portion of the player base, especially the more casual gamers Skyrim was able to bring in. A lot of them just wanted something mildly engaging that they could sink a lot of hours into over a long period of time, and Skyrim provided just that. It's a rare single-player game that can compete with multiplayer titles in terms of potential worthwhile playtime. I still believe that Skyrim would have been a much better game if its combat and role-playing asked for more from players, but
Would it have though? But how much more? I mean, that's like a semantics thing. You could probably up the combat difficulty. Well, not even difficulty, like maybe even like complexity. What's what would that look like? Like, what game could you compare that to? Because like, could you potentially slap on like Monster Hunter combat uh in Skyrim? I mean, I don't know, probably not. I mean, even though combat doesn't feel like that rewarding, it's fucking easy. You just swing your sword and then you'll eventually kill the guy.
I also think far more people would have bounced off of it if that were the case. With all that said, Skyrim's long-term appeal is deeper than it being designed in a way that is approachable to everyone. While it certainly leans pretty heavily on the side of soft design, it does have a fair bit of spiky design as well, a lot of which helps accentuate my favorite bits of the game. For instance, it does a lot of stuff that cultivates a powerful sense of place. Every object in the game is a physical thing that can be interacted with.
That's
they
badass.
can be picked up and moved around, which doesn't really serve much purpose, but the interactivity feels nice regardless. Presenting items in this way often makes it slower to collect them as they aren't just bundled up.
Bro, it wasn't until like years later after I got done playing Skyrim that I realized the travesty of a pile of coins being purposely set somewhere like a pile of breadcrumbs for a player to pick up all individual like coins. Like, whenever I play Skyrim, anytime I saw like a pile of gold coins, I would pick every one up. You know, just because it's like, well, it's min-maxing. It's like, well, what if I need them later? It's like, okay. But then I came to the realization of, is the developer fucking with the player whenever they put random ass coins in random ass locations in the game just to bait the player to think that, oh, you're such a min-maxer, you're going to pick up every little coin because there's a little coin trail that leads to a pile, and I'm going to make you pick everyone up because I purposely put every one little there. If only I knew. I could just leave. You could just leave every coin pile, every coin purse in place in Skyrim and simply just steal some shit and sell some shit. Because it was so annoying to pick up every little fucking coin in that damn game. God dang it.
Up in a glowing light that you know will be worthwhile to grab. Instead, you need to sift through things, picking them up one by one, which in some cases, like when there are a dozen gold pieces on a table, can feel excessive. But it also...
Yes, you as a player, if you see that, you're picking up every one. You're not thinking, oh, the developer's playing a ha-ha on me and is going to laugh when he realizes he goes into the game and then he realizes how many players picked up all those damn coins. I'll be like, you guys are losers. You picked up every coin.
Also creates an almost tactile sense to the things you're engaging with. You have to spot what you might need and decide what's actually useful and what will just waste space in your inventory.
And also, I do like the fact that whenever you just like pick a bunch of like random ass items and just put them in the game like that in such a way that Skyrim did, it made the game feel more immersive because with the amount of items everywhere, like you as a gamer, like you're automatically, well, not automatically, but like you're always looking to like level up in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not like by level, or like maybe grab like a new item. When just items are just out and about like that, it makes it seem like, oh, there's like a fucking powerful ass item right there. It's, go ahead, use it. That's like the vibe I'm getting from the developer. It's like, yeah, we don't care. This is the vibe for this little thief castle. Yeah, there's like a powerful item right there. Yeah, go get it. There's some like greater soul gems right there. There's like a really good dagger right there. Yeah, go get it. I mean, understandably, that's like soft type of gameplay. But god dang, it feels so satisfying to not be like, I don't know, hindered. Just for the sake of, oh, we have to balance the game at all points in time. And we can't give a player too much power in the beginning. Because if they get too powerful, the rest of the game's going to feel like shit. It's going to be too easy for them. It's like, yeah, just take this really cool necklace. It's got like plus 15 speechcraft. It weighs like 1, you know? Keep it for later.
Honestly, the encumbrance system in general pushes you to always think about the items you're carrying. I do have issues with how it's incorporated, but at the very least it prompts some level of thoughtfulness about what you're grabbing. I think it could be argued that the game's reliance on menuing also adds to this feeling, as even
Yeah, the menuing. I mean, in retrospect, I look back and I didn't think there was anything wrong with the menuing, but I look at it again with like my modern brain. I'm like, yeah, this wasn't the best.
with hotkeys, there are so many items and abilities you'll likely cycle between that you'll never cover them all. So whether it be the favorites menu or the main menu, you'll be pausing the action regularly and scrolling through everything you have, as there is no real way to sort stuff to get to the things you want to use. In theory, reminding you about all the other things you have at your disposal. While these breaks in action can be annoying, they also lead to some incredible moments where you notice something far more useful in your inventory than what you were looking for that helps you overcome a challenge. Furthermore, even though the game scales to your level, there are some enemies placed around the world with set levels and others who start at a much higher level than the Dragonborn before they start scaling. This leads to some big difficulty spikes where you need to figure out how to deal with an enemy that you don't have a good chance of defeating by typical means. On this playthrough, I was given a quest from the companions to take out some vampires, and it all felt like an appropriate challenge until just before the end, where a master vampire blocked my way. As I was far under his level and had no shot of out damaging him, I instead kited him over to a ledge, charmed him so he wouldn't be hostile, lined things up as best as I could, and then somewhat messily knocked him off. And it felt so good to do. Admittedly, more often than not, these spikes will...
And it's all thanks to that wonky ass game system that you were shitting on earlier.
Probably push players to just run away, but they can also spur creative thinking, which makes them valuable. The dragon attacks are another example of this. When they pop up, your travels become far more treacherous, and it can lead to some interesting interactions. Like when a blood dragon attacked me as I was running by a giant, and the two of them started fighting. So
that's the fucking coolest. This is like essentially like a turf war that's going on whenever the dragons and the giants fighting each other, or a dragon and another dragon. Or like a dragon and the townsfolk.
Distance, doing what I could to support my new giant friend. This all adds a layer of excitement to what can often be just a dull walk. Honestly, even the fact that the game doesn't have interesting movement mechanics means your focus will mostly be on just looking around, helping you get a better lay of the land and appreciate the beauty of the place you're in.
I think, what do you call it? The movement mechanics in Skyrim versus Oblivion, like, yeah, they dumbed it down a little bit, but like you had that dragon shout that like let you sprint. You have your horse, you have your own personal sprint, or no, you had the shout that allowed you to dash. You have your own personal sprint. You have a mount. You could slow down time. What else? There wasn't a lot of verticality traversing, unless you consider the damn horse going up mountains. It's like, eh. But other than that, there's not much movement. In Oblivion, the main thing in Oblivion I remember is like, if you jumped enough and you got like master level jumping, you could just jump on water, which I thought was cool as hell. Or you could like double jump, essentially. That was in there, or maybe you just could jump higher. So, yeah, that was a thing.
I'm not saying all of these things are perfectly done. I'm not even saying that Bethesda incorporated every single one of them with this exact result in mind, but I do think their friction has an effect, and for the most part that effect makes players consider the space they are in and the various things that are in it in a way a lot of games don't. Skyrim's major mechanics are soft, making it massively approachable, but many of its minor ones are spiky, creating a thorough connection between the player and the world without running the risk of them getting stuck. This, mixed with Skyrim's massive scope, creates a unique kind of immersion, one that is more concerned with the small moments than the big ones. But as there are so many small moments to be had, it all adds up to something more substantial. There are so many interactions to experience. You can explore almost any place you see. You can grab a fish from a line. You can pick up a mug from a table. You can find ants crawling on trees.
I didn't even know about this fucking ants thing. Huh.
Stumps. You can drop something on the ground and it will still be there 20 hours later.
Yeah.
There are...
Do not make like whenever you get like a bunch of homes and shit, or you get your first home, do not make any container your one container to rule them all, because both me and my buddy tried to do that and the container worked, but to say that it opened up immediately was far from the truth. Me and my buddy made our own personal containers, like the one container to rule them all, and it just had simply every item that we had, and we just kept on putting it in a container. It was either like a chest or like a wardrobe or whatever. Yeah, do not do that because you will quickly find that the more shit you put in a container, the longer it takes to load and open that container, which is very annoying. And I think at one point my buddy showed me his, and it took about like 30 seconds to a minute to open that damn chest and to like show all the items to pop up. Conversely, I tried to make a treasure room, something, like in the game you had like all those little gems and whatnot. I simply just went around collecting all types of gems and just stuck them in this one room. And I would do this like with coins too. And I would do this with like one coin at a time. And I tried to make a treasure pile, but I quickly realized that upon opening that room, because it has a door, you could open and close the door. When I opened the door, my game damn near crashed every time. But god damn it, did that room look fucking sick. Because when you open it, you're just like, it's like a floor, it's like a pile of just gems and little gold coins everywhere. But god damn it, my little 360 kept on chugging, just barely. It's like, oh shit, he's coming to open the door. Oh shit, here we go. Oh man, that shit was fun though.
Roaring rivers, lush forests, and northern lights that paint the night sky. Characters go about their lives regardless of if you are there and have conversations with each other about insignificant things. And every moment is accompanied by impeccable sound design and an all-timer soundtrack. Frankly, a lot of this stuff doesn't really matter in terms of what could be considered the core of the game. They aren't part of the gameplay loop, and most don't even serve a functional purpose. But they are still there, and can be encountered everywhere. Even though the combat and role-playing don't feel like they have much weight to them, the world itself does. It feels alive. And while the game does frequently show its seams and break the powerful sense of immersion it builds so well, it never takes long to slip back into it by coming across something new.
Yeah.
In the documentary, You're Finally Awake, 9 developers recount the making of Skyrim. There's a quote from Dennis Mahiones, one of the game's character artists, that I keep
that's pretty
back
cool.
to. Which
I may have to go watch that.
It's not that we did any one thing first or any one thing better. It's that we did it all for the first time. The thing is, it's not just that they did it all for the first time. It's also that no other game has really done it all again since, at least not to the same degree. And this is the other major reason I think Skyrim continues to be so popular to this day.
Yeah, because you could easily look at Elden Ring and try to say like, oh, Elden Ring kind of does this. But the thing that Elden Ring doesn't have is like, it doesn't have like 9 other cities or however many are in Skyrim with all like character patterns, locations, pathing. It doesn't, like, it has dragons, but it's not just like random dragon spawns in the air. Okay, it's go time. All right, the world is happening around you regardless of whether or not you're there. Like Elden Ring is good and it's very immersive, but it's like compared to Skyrim, it's like it's different type of immersion. I don't know. Like Elden Ring, I would say is kind of bleak. Save like certain settings. For the most part, it's like just you versus the world. Skyrim, it's like it's you versus the world, but there's like a bunch of other cities, a bunch of other people like going around on the roads, a bunch of monsters, a bunch of animals, vampires, caves to explore and shit. It's cool.
No other game feels like it. Sure, plenty of open world titles have incorporated ideas from Skyrim, but the vast majority of them have taken far more influence from the likes of Assassin's Creed and Grand Theft Auto. Most are action focused, have third person perspectives, and offer far less unnecessary interactivity. This makes leaner games that are often more fun to play on a moment.
That's a good point. The unnecessary interactivity within the game, being able to pick up any item or steal any item. I think that just adds a lot of flavor and immersion in the world. Even though, you could like go throughout a town and see like all this like, shit just sitting around, you could potentially steal it, or if it's not too inconsequential, you just leave it there. But you know, in the back of your head, that little that little fruit basket, you can steal every little orange out of there.
To moment basis, but they lack the slow burn that makes Skyrim Skyrim. What I've come to realize through replaying Skyrim and talking to others about it is that for a lot of people, the reason they keep coming back isn't because they want to defeat Alduin or become the head of the Thieves Guild.
Yeah.
It's not because they care about maxing out their armor or getting the most powerful spells. It's that they just want to recapture the wonder of being part of a fantastical world that feels realized in a unique way.
Yeah.
It isn't always concerned with every aspect adding to the gameplay. They might want to experience this for just 1 hour, or they might want to for 100, but ultimately it is less about the experience of playing through the game than it is about playing in it. For these reasons and more, Skyrim has created a loyal following. By appealing to a massive audience but delivering an experience that feels deliberate in significant ways, they hooked millions of people. And many of those people are willing to buy multiple versions of the game so that they can keep stepping back into an experience only it really offers. Many also have the desire to regularly mod it in order to get a fresh experience of what they first
I've never modded Skyrim.
Honestly, Skyrim is kind of the perfect game to be modded because it has so many systems with the potential of being far more interesting than they currently are.
Yeah.
Bethesda deserves a ton of credit for recognizing that their fans would want to mod the game and providing tools.
That's so cool. Like, you have like the whole potion alchemy system, the magic create a spell system. You have the enchanting system. What else? You have the armor smith, weaponsmith creation system. Like, there's so much cool ass shit in there. Like, albeit probably upon further inspection, it's probably very rudimentary. You could probably make it a little more complex, but I think it's like, it's a good, it's just solid.
To help them do it more easily. Skyrim rides an interesting line of being for everyone and for no one. I can't say examining it in this way has made me fall in love with it. I do still find myself wishing it was a much better game, or at least more suited for my tastes. But also, I think there is a ton of value in it being an entry point to video games, or at least these kinds of video games for so many people. Skyrim came out at a perfect time to reach a new audience, and Bethesda did a stellar job in grasping that audience and designing a game that wouldn't push them away, while also putting in enough jagged edges to make things feel meaningful. The world is worth revisiting because in ways it feels like a real place. A place you'd be lucky to see with your own two eyes.
Yeah, you see that mountain over there? You can go over there. See that mountain over there? You can go over there. You see this town right there? There's a bunch of people, a bunch of different businesses, a bunch of different shit to steal, a bunch of different chickens to kill and whatnot. You know, there's a bunch of stuff you could do in here.
A place that begs the question, why not Skyrim?
Why not Skyrim 2? Steel Warhammer. You're carrying too much to be able to run. Bro, put on your fucking like carry set or drinking a carry potion.
If you also hate getting over encumbered, you should check out this video sponsor, Bellroy. Bellroy makes tons of awesome products that are focused on keeping you organized and looking stylish. I use Bellroy stuff all the time. The sling has become a part of my everyday carry, as well as this wallet, which somehow is able to hold all of my cards without being a bulky mess. For bigger trips, I have a backpack with more secret pockets than you can imagine, and a tech kit that is perfect for transporting small electronics like a Switch. In general, Bellroy provides functional yet sleek ways to carry your stuff, and they do a lot to minimize the environmental impacts of making physical things by using sustainable materials like Ecotan leather and recycled nylon. Bellroy has become my go-to place to buy stuff like this. I've shopped from them in the past and will again. So yeah, if you're like me and love quality bags and cool little accessories, click the link in the description to get 10% off anything at Bellroy.com. Whatever it is, I'm willing to bet that it will help you in one way or another.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks to Bellroy for sponsoring this video. For all of you still here, hi. I'd like to thank my patrons for making this channel possible. It goes further than you know. I hope you all have a great day and or night, and I will see you in the next one.
Nice. Dang. That's a good ass video. Skyrim. Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed Skyrim. You know, I can't wait for until the next game comes out, the next installment of Elder Scrolls. I hope they do a great job um, in terms of what the game is going to be. I am not entirely sure because, you could look back and try to figure out, okay, it's not like Skyrim had like zero microtransactions, and well, because it did have microtransactions, but also it did have a lot of good DLC in the game too. There's I can't remember all the DLC, but it was good. It was like there were pretty big expansions. The DLCs were good. What else? I'm trying to think. Uh, but I mean, I'd be remiss if I couldn't mention like the horse armor that started it all. The microtransaction, death sentence that's like killing games now, all because of the fucking horse armor. But it's not really Skyrim, but it was fucking Elder Scrolls. So, uh, I mean, overall, I mean that's a good ass video, man. 100%. That was a banger. But yeah. I mean, I can't wait to see the next one. But yeah, good stuff. And that's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.